We're also following very closely the situation in Ukraine and the ongoing war. At least 7 people were killed by Russian strikes in the capital Kyiv overnight as diplomatic efforts to end the war continue. Ukrainian officials say the strikes caused extensive damage to residential buildings and civilian infrastructure across the city. President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia launched 22 missiles and more than 460 drones into Ukraine last night. Meanwhile, Russian officials report at least 3 people were killed after Ukraine carried strikes in the border regions of Krasnodar and Rostov. CBC's Crystal Mansing joining us back again this hour following the war in Ukraine. She's in London right now. So, Crystal, let's sort of walk through again these strikes, quite significant here as we're sort of teetering on whether or not there is any level of a peace deal.
Yeah, the strikes overnight and into early this morning, incredibly intense. 2 different districts in the capital Kyiv were hit. Search rescue efforts ongoing at some of those locations. We're talking about high-rise buildings, so it is a rather complicated effort to make sure that everyone who is in those buildings is in fact out. There were reports earlier this morning that more than a dozen people were still unaccounted for. We did hear from Ukraine's foreign minister, Andriy Skryba, saying that there was also strikes in Odessa, Kharkiv and Chernihiv, saying that, this is Russia's response to the U.S. peace agreement, that they respond with a barrage of missile and drone strikes killing civilians. As you mentioned, there were also strikes in Russia. Ukraine's military also saying that they hit a oil refinery in the southern area of Russia along the port in the Black Sea. We are hearing as well from Russian officials, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign affairs minister, saying that if there is any sort of peace agreement, the spirit and the letter of the Alaska summit needs to be respected. And you'll remember that summit back in August involved Russian President Vladimir Putin and the U.S. President Donald Trump. The focus of that was not what Ukraine would see would be reasonable in terms of ending the war, but it was what Russia wanted to focus on. That is obviously a major concern. We do know that there are talks underway by the U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll. He is in Abu Dhabi. He has met a couple of days ago with Ukrainian officials. He is now meeting with some Russian officials as they really try to move forward with this now what is being described as a refined peace framework. However, there is going to be a lot of work that needs to be done. Anything that is acceptable to Ukraine likely won't be acceptable to the Russians. Each side has some very different and very entrenched red lines. So discussions underway. Lavrov was asked to comment on those talks, and he declined to give any sort of comment about those discussions, Angie.
Yeah, very interesting there. And as you point out, sort of a refined look at this peace deal in terms of how they're going to navigate with essentially here both sides pushing back. The coalition of the willing are also going to be holding a call today. So what are we expecting to hear from those allies?
Yeah, so just as a reminder to everyone, the Coalition of the Willing is about 30 different countries, all countries who said that if there was a peace agreement, they would step up and support that peace agreement. But we are obviously not there yet. We do know that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had a call with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. That call apparently considered to be very productive. The UK and France, sort of the co-hosts of the Coalition of the Willing, a coalition that Canada is a member of. We did hear from French President Emmanuel Macron. He did an interview with RTL Radio in which he said peace is wanted not only by Ukrainians but Europeans, but not at any cost.
Nous voulons la paix. Mais nous ne voulons pas une paix qui soit en effet une capitulation, c'est-à-dire qui mette l'Ukraine dans une situation impossible, qui donne toute liberté à la Russie, au fond, de continuer, d'aller plus loin, y compris vers d'autres Européens, et mettre notre sécurité à tous en danger.
Now, he was also asked if there is a potential that he could go to the United States, maybe with another European delegation like we saw previously in support of Ukraine and any sort of peace agreement. He said no, he doesn't have any plans to go to the U.S. But we did hear from Ukrainian officials. They say it's possible that Zelensky could make that trip before the end of the month. And so that really just puts us in the next couple of days, Angie.
No, it does. Certainly it does. And we'll be watching that very, very closely in terms of what Volodymyr Zelensky plans on doing. But as you point out as well, with the coalition of the willing, their investment in all of this and sort of what that deal is going to mean. Crystal, thank you so much for this. Appreciated. CBC's Crystal Gamansing for us in London.